Okay, good evening, everybody. It's Wednesday night before Pesach, so tonight we're doing products. Tonight's class is dedicated in memory of my mother-in-law's yard site, which is tomorrow night, the 24th of Adar. And Shalom Shelav Ali, and she should be a good Tibet, a good advocate.
Amen.
Okay, anyway, tonight's class is products. So they always give an introduction to this class, which is very important. It's probably more important than the class itself. When it comes to Pesach, there's a lot of fanaticism that people have. We mentioned last week that Rizal says whoever is careful from a masha who would one iota of chametz is guaranteed that they won't sin during the year. And we mentioned the free choice is not taken away, but so people many times are very, very careful when it comes to kashrus and Pesach. They don't eat this and they don't eat that and they don't eat that. And they only eat processed food. They don't eat processed foods and they don't eat in somebody else's house. That's all fine and dandy. And everybody is able, if everybody in the house is able to handle it, that's fine. It's a very good thing. What we're doing tonight in the class is talking about things that could be eaten. I'm not saying you have to eat it. If you want to be strict and not to eat it, that's fine. But at the same time, many times you hear people talking about Pesach and they say, we keep all the Chabad customs. We don't eat dairy, we don't eat this, we don't eat that, we don't eat that. There's one rule that Rebbe emphasized many times. Chabad custom is not what people think is a Chabad custom. Chabad custom is what the Rebbe writes in Sefer Minhagim, Hayom Yom, letters from the Rebbe that the Rebbe explicitly said what a Chabad custom is. When people come by Pesach and they say we keep Chabad customs, to give you an example, we don't eat dairy on Pesach, okay? In the Rebbe's house, there was dairy on Pesach, and the Rebbe was more Chabad than anybody else's. So you can't say Chabad custom is not to eat milchiks and not to eat dairy on Pesach, okay? Yeah, there was such a custom. There was such a custom because like we mentioned last time, milk, I did not mention in this class. There was a reason why people didn't eat dairy years ago. First, there's no such Chabad custom. Okay, again, Chabad custom is what the Rebbe writes clearly as a Chabad custom. Are there people in Chabad that don't eat dairy? Yeah. Are there people in Chabad that eat dairy? Yes. Well, it was nothing to do with Chabad custom, not Chabad custom. It isn't the Chabad custom. The reason why, and give you an example of why things today don't apply to the same way they used to apply years ago. Well, bottom line, I'm not getting into the lumdis and the learning of the aspect of it, but if you want to use milk on Pesach, the milk has to be from milk that was milked before Pesach. For a lot of halachic reasons, the Gemara talks about it. You can't use milk that was milked during the Yom Tov of Pesach. You have to make sure the milk was milked before Pesach. By the way, the milk that comes into the stores, the Chol Yisrael milk that comes in during Pesach, it's just delivered to the stores during Pesach. It was all milked before Pesach. Now, you have to understand, in the olden times, they didn't have refrigerators and freezers like we have today. So people, in order to use dairy, they had to buy it before Yom Tov. No refrigeration. How long does milk last already? Not in refrigeration. Okay, that's issue number one. So it would spoil. So by the time and Yom Tov, the first 2 days, anyway, how much dairy do you eat the first 2 days? You're eating meat meals. So, and secondly, in the olden times, they didn't have disposable cutlery, disposable plates, disposable cups. Everything was regular plates. Now, people were so poor, they barely had enough money to buy one set of dishes. Now you're going to go buy a second set of dishes for meat and dairy. They couldn't afford it. And they said like this, 4 days of Yom Tov, 4 days out of the 8 days of Pesach, right? First 2 days, last 2 days. 4 days of Yom Tov, 4 days Chol Hamoed. Can we afford it? And the milk has to be from before Pesach, all that stuff. Bottom line, that's why a lot of people didn't use milchiks on Pesach. And by Pesach, there's something called tradition. So if they didn't eat milchiks, that's what they keep doing. That's fine. But people starting out, or if people want to eat milchiks, anything that has a proper hechsher for Pesach, a proper reliable supervision for Pesach, if people want to use it, they could use it, and there's no problem with it. Okay, that's issue number one. There are certain things, I'm not going into the products yet. I just want to mention that there are certain things, the Rebbe is right, we don't eat on Pesach. For instance, the Rebbe writes in the Haggadah that we don't use cinnamon on Pesach. For whatever reason, it was a mixture of chametz maybe. So the Rebbe writes, we don't use cinnamon on Pesach. Therefore, there is a Chabad custom not to use cinnamon on Pesach. The Tzemach Tzedek writes, we don't use radishes on Pesach. So that the Rebbe writes, and Tzemach Tzedek writes, we don't use radishes. So that's a Chabad custom that we don't use radishes on Pesach. It's brought down that we don't, in Chabad, the custom is we don't use alcohol drinking alcohol, like mashke. Even if it has a kosher Pesach, in Chabad, the custom is, some Tzedek writes, it's based on Rabbi Kiva Eger. Rabbi Kiva Eger writes, there's a custom not to use whiskey, drinking alcohol during Pesach, and there's no reason, and the Tzemach Tzedek says there's no reason, that's what we do. So these things like this, or tell you another thing, cloves, it's brought down to Shulchan Aruch not to use it because there are many places they would dry it with chametz and so on and so forth. So that Shulchan Aruch brings down there's a custom not to use cloves on Pesach. So these things is a Chabad custom not to use. Everything else you can't say is a Chabad custom to use or not to use. Some people use it, some people don't use it. But you don't take people that are starting off in Yiddishkeit and tell them they can't use oil, and if the fork falls on the floor, you throw it, you put it away until after Pesach. You just don't do that, okay? And as I mentioned in last week's class, when it comes to Pesach, everybody has to be on the same page. If they want to allow the children to eat certain things that they don't, fine, that's also okay. But people have to know that fighting on Pesach is worse than anything else of any of these stricter observances that have, yes, a basis in halacha, but they're stricter observances. And fighting, as we discussed the other night, is definitely biblically forbidden. So I'm going to go through again. I mentioned before the lists are not here yet properly. I'm going to go through things that on Pesach you can use without necessarily a special hechsher for Pesach. And it's self-understood when you're using these things for Pesach, you need to get new containers because the containers that you had around the whole year around chametz, you can't use those, even though the soap detergent, let's say, is good for Pesach, but the container that was around your chametz sink a whole year, you really can't use that container. You have to get a new container, okay? So now, all air fresheners are good. I'm just going alphabetical, and it's a good thing that they list are alphabetical order because not everybody knows their alphabet. So air fresheners, all the air fresheners are good. Any isopropyl alcohol is good, like rubbing alcohol is good for Pesach. I'm not to eat it, but you can use it. By the way, chametz is not only forbidden to eat, you can't actually benefit from chametz either. So again, all isopropyl alcohol is not a problem kosher if it's without a hechsher. All aluminum foil pans, if they're not coated, okay, because coated ones, it could be a problem. I don't tell my secrets which list I'm reading from. These are different lists that come out. It's cholent from them all. Okay, regular aluminum pans, regular aluminum foil are all good for Pesach. Aluminum disposable containers are good. Baby bottles, because you have baby bottles that are around the chametz the entire year. So obviously you need to get separate bottles for Pesach. Baby bottles, which are made out of plastic or glass, even for that matter, cannot be kosher for Pesach. So you need to get new bottles for Pesach. Baby food and baby bottles really need to be proper hechsher for Pesach. Baby formulas, again, to my knowledge, a lot of them are the OU ones. A lot of them might be kitnius, which is the legume family. And let me just say the issue with kitnius, because it applies to the major fundamental difference between Ashkenazic. There are many differences in Pesach, but one of the major differences between Ashkenazic and Sephardic community on Pesach is the Ashkenazic community does not eat what's called kitnius. Kitnius is any product of the legume family: beans, peas, soy, rice, all those types of things are legume families, and therefore Ashkenazic Jews are not allowed to eat it on Pesach. They could benefit from it. For instance, if you have cornstarch, baby powder cornstarch. So cornstarch is corn derivative. Corn is kitnius, but you're allowed to use it on your body. You're allowed to use it on a baby diaper rash, whatever. Why? Because you're not eating it. Kitnius for Ashkenazic Jews is only forbidden to eat. You can benefit from it. So therefore, obviously, if you're using corn powder, and you want to use food, you have to wash your hands in the bathroom sink to make sure there's nothing left over. A lot of the baby formulas are OU, even the like Similac, they're all good, and the Isomals are all good. Those are good, but many of them are kitnius. So if you're asking, but the din is a person who is not well, a sick person, is allowed to eat kitnius even for Ashkenazic Jews. Therefore, babies, especially under 2, have a halachic category of sick people, and therefore babies could have soy formula. You have to make sure there's no chametz in it, but soy formula and other things like that, because they have a din of a sick person. Okay, all baby oils are good. Baby ointments, because not edible, are all good. But again, if you're using ointment and you want to touch food afterwards, then you have to wash your hands. Another important thing to do, many of these ointments and creams and powders, you have to check the ingredients to make sure there's no oats in them. Many of these powders and creams actually have oats in them, in the ingredients. So I can't say halachically it's not good because it's not edible for dogs, but if somebody can get away without using them, they really should not use them on Pesach. Again, it's not a big shaila in halacha, but if you can get one without oats, why do you need to use the one with oats? All talcum powder, as long as, again, as long as it doesn't say oat flour in the ingredients, it's fine. Okay, baby wipes, all of them without alcohol is good. All bags, paper, plastic bags are all good. Baking soda, not baking powder. Baking powder must have a hechsher for Pesach, otherwise it's no good, it's mamish chametz. But baking soda, all baking soda is good. I know people leave it in the refrigerator for different usages, but again, if you want to use baking soda on Pesach, you have to get a new container. You can't keep the container of baking soda that you had in your refrigerator a whole year because it's definitely around chametz. Aluminum baking pans are good. I'm just going with the list there. Balloons, make sure there's no powder. Sometimes they put powder in the balloon. Same thing with gloves, by the way, we'll get to later, that a lot of the gloves that you wear in the kitchen, a lot of them have a powder in them. So all the lists are writing that you should get gloves that don't have any powder. Or even if, how do you know if there's powder in the glove or not? Take a glove, turn it inside out, wipe it on something black, and you'll see right away if there's powder on it. If there's powder on it, you really shouldn't use the gloves. Any, like they say, the gloves, they don't say, but gloves without any powder in it is 100% good. Even if, by the way, even if you only have gloves that have powder, all you have to do is before Pesach in your bathroom sink, turn it inside out, wash it out, make sure there's no powder. It's not chametz. Make sure there's no powder, and then you can use those gloves. Okay, bleach. All bleach is good. All band-aids are good. All powdered blush makeup is good. Breath strips. People have the Listerine breath strips. Those must have a hechsher for Pesach because a lot of them are kitnius. And kitnius, again, you're putting it into your mouth, so then you really can't use it on Pesach. All candles are good. All carpet cleaners are good. People that want to make barbecues, charcoal briquettes are good, including the flavored ones. Cheesecloth is good. Cleansers, all of the powdered cleansers are good. Any of the Ajax, whatever, any powdered cleanser is good for Pesach. Cocoa powder, if it's 100% pure cocoa with no additives. The Hershey makes this dark cocoa, not that you use for baking or whatever. So again, that's 100% good for Pesach, except you have to make sure that you don't use the same one you use during the year. Coconut milk must have a hechsher for Pesach. I'm skipping to the more important ones. Okay, now when it comes to coffee, all decaffeinated coffee must have a hechsher for Pesach. Regular unflavored coffee, okay, like not any, Folgers, Nescafe Taster's Choice, and Starbucks that has an OU, those are kosher lePesach. Obviously, if you buy coffee with a hechsher for Pesach in a kosher market, that's for sure good. I'm just going to find the things that are more practical. Okay, coffee filters, any unflavored coffee filter is good. Contact lens fluid is good. Cooking spray, Pompian, avocado, and grapeseed oil with the star K is good. Cleaner like Haggerty, silver polish, or copper cleaner is good. Okay, we're not going into medicines now because I don't have the updated list. It's really hard to say. Crockpot liners, many people use plastic crockpot liners for the crock. All of them are good. Cups, paper cups. So here they write all paper, plastic, or styrofoam. It's better, especially if you're using it for hot, not to use paper. Paper has a starch. Oils, we didn't get into the oils. I'll get to the oils soon. Cups is better on Pesach to use styrofoam or plastic, because other things have a starch in it. The paper has a starch in it that keeps it firm. So a lot of the Kosher organizations say it's not a halachic issue, but again, if people can use styrofoam or plastic cups, would be better. Dental floss, any unflavored dental floss. Dental floss, which is flavored, they're right not to use on Pesach, but regular, it could be waxed or unwaxed, doesn't matter. As long as it's not flavored, it's good. Deodorant, all powder and stick deodorant powder can be used. Okay? The stick deodorant and the powder deodorant is good. The question with the liquids, again, there's a list, again, that list they don't have yet, but a lot of them are good for Pesach. The issue with them is, see, the stick and the powder, there's no alcohol in it. The spray deodorants, some of them have alcohol in it, and then you go into the question, what type of alcohol they're using, is it good or not good? So again, that list I don't have yet. All dish detergent, clothes detergent is good. All of the OU, dish detergent, the liquid detergent, like Ajax, Amway, Cascade, Don, Giant, Avery, Joint, Palmolive, Procter & Gamble, Trader Joe's, all of them that have an OU are good. All diapers are good. Eggs, okay. Now eggs is as follows. Eggs have to be from eggs that were laid before Pesach. Again, just like we spoke about the milk, you can't use milk that was milked on Pesach. According to halacha, it's very questionable with using eggs that were laid on Pesach. So therefore, people should buy enough eggs, if preferable, before Pesach. They should buy enough eggs. If you go into the kosher markets during Pesach, let's say you run out of eggs, any eggs that the kosher markets have are definitely from before Pesach. They don't get eggs in during Pesach in the kosher markets. If you go to a supermarket, like you go to Ralph's or the other ones, so then the question is, they got in the eggs, you don't know how long did it take from the time the eggs were laid until the store got them in. So again, the best thing by eggs is to stock up before Pesach. And if you run out, you should only buy it from a kosher market. All eye drops are good. Fabric protectors, fabric softeners are good. Face powder is good. Fish. When you're buying fish for Pesach, we live in LA, you really should buy fish from a kosher market that has a hechsher for Pesach. I'm not saying that Costco salmon is not good. I'm not saying that chas v'shalom. I'm just saying when it comes to Pesach, even if it costs a little bit more, it's definitely halachically worth making an effort to buy fish and those things and meat, obviously, from a kosher market, because then it's under supervision and it's much less of a problem. Even the frozen loaves of fish, you have to make sure that they're kosher lePesach, because a lot of them have matzah mel in it, which is not kosher lePesach during the year. But the ones they make on Pesach, which have a supervision for Pesach, those are fine and there's no problem to it. Concerning generally meat and chicken, let's say you bought meat from a butcher 4 months ago and it's in your freezer and you never used it and you want to know if you can use it on Pesach, I can't answer the question because it's up to the market where you bought it. Because they could have been using, they don't care during the year, they could be using chametz when they're cutting the meat or making the meat or preparing the meat, whatever. You don't know. So if the store will tell you, whole year it's kosher lePesach, fine. But otherwise, you should not use old meat that you have in your freezer that you bought by a butcher because maybe it is not kosher lePesach. You don't know. You just don't know. And if you don't know, you don't know. Dried fruit must have a hechsher for Pesach because a lot of dried fruit, by the way, they dry it by using flour, which is real chametz. So that any dried fruit needs a proper hechsher for Pesach. Furniture polish is good. All garbage bags are good. All glass cleaners are good. They say just make sure there's no vinegar in the glass cleaner, and then there's no problem with it. Gloves, okay, we spoke about that already. Glue, Elmer's white glue, not the paste, and crazy glue is good for Pesach. Hand sanitizer, okay. There was if everybody remembers, COVID happened exactly 3 years ago today. A week ago, now, whatever. COVID happened 3 years ago. In the last few years, the Kosher organizations said hand sanitizer could be used for Pesach. They did it based on a lot of leniencies in halacha because of COVID. They wanted to make sure, there's not an issue with it. But the truth is, the hand sanitizers is preferable not to use this year during Pesach. You want to wash your hands, use, soap and water, but you shouldn't use the hand sanitizers this year because there are issues with it. In fact, they're telling you, if you're using it, you have to buy it before Pesach, and then you go into law of nullification with everything else under the sun. But practically speaking, you shouldn't use hand sanitizers here. Hairspray are good. Okay. Advil, Bayer, Motrin, Tylenol, those are all good. Fantastic, Glass Plus, Lysol, Sunlight, they're all good. Hydrogen peroxide is good. Ice, any unflavored ice is fine. So let's say you want to go to the store and buy a bag of ice. Halachically, there's no issue with it with Pesach as long as there's no flavor in it. Okay, the formula we said about the OU formulas basically are good. Juices and concentrate. Juices, practically speaking, should have a good. I want to say something. That's why I said before at the beginning, we need to know what the alphabet is. Right now, we're by juice, which is J. Somebody asks about mouthwash, that's JKLM. So when we get to M, we'll do the mouthwash. But right now, we're by J, by juices. But juices should, unless if you make your own juice, juices must have a hechsher for Pesach because you don't know what they pasteurize it in. They can pasteurize it in the same utensils as milk, as chametz, as clam juice. I saw that once in a factory. You don't know. So juices, generally during the year, all juices during the year need a hechsher. Because it's not stam a raw juice. It's a raw juice that's pasteurized. Pasteurizes heat. Okay? So now, when you take the same pasteurizer that you did with chametz, and now you pasteurize juice in it, it's not kosher lePesach. So you need to make sure that it's, kosher lePesach with a proper hechsher. Lemon juice, for instance, interesting. Lemon juice is the real lemon juice with an OU is good for Pesach. Again, liquor we spoke about before. Meat and poultry, again, meat and poultry you have to buy from a store that's Pesach dik, and you make sure that it's Pesach dik, and that's the whole story with meat. Milk, again, even if you don't keep Cholav Yisrael a whole year, for Pesach you really should keep Cholav Yisrael, because besides the fact, again, you need supervision, make sure it was milk before Pesach and all that. A lot of the milks add vitamins to them that might be questionable for Pesach. So therefore, the best thing is to buy milk that was Cholav Yisrael, and if there's no problem, not with the vitamins, not with the milk when it was, and that's not a problem. Okay, milk substitutes a lot of them are soy, which again, Ashkenazi Jews cannot use during Pesach. But besides that, there's a lot of other issues with, for Pesach, I'm saying, and kashrus in general, for milk substitutes. So any milk substitute that you want to use, you must have a proper hechsher for Pesach. Okay, now coming to mouthwashes, Colgate, Listerine, Amway. This year, this list says Scope is good. Some years Scope was good, some years Scope wasn't good. Again, if you can stick to Colgate and Listerine, the mouthwashes would be better. I'm not saying Scope is not good. Tom's of Maine is also good, but because now the question is, are you eating it or you're not eating it? But the bottom line is you're rinsing your mouth with it. So you need to have one that's kosher lePesach. Now kosher stores, by the way, sell kosher mouthwashes and all that. Off the record, I would say don't waste your money buying them because these are just as good as those. They don't make it in a separate way necessarily. Okay, all napkins are good. Nail polish remover is good. Nuts, okay. So if they're raw, whole, chopped, or whatever, but I'm talking about almonds, walnuts, pine nuts that don't have BHA or BHT or any additives or preservatives are good for Pesach. Okay. Then some nuts, it says on the label, were processed in a plant of kidneys or chametz. Then you must have a proper hechsher for Pesach. Okay, so the bottom line is, when you want to buy nuts for Pesach, the best thing would be either buy whole nuts, that you peel your shell yourself, and you use them that way, or you can get these raw nuts that have nothing added to them, and then you can get them. In the kosher markets, they sell ground nuts with a hechsher, or regular nuts with a hechsher, or whatever. Oil, okay. Now, let's start with olive. Okay, let's go back a second. Oils besides olive oil, must have a hechsher for Pesach. Any oil, with the exception of olive oil. If you have olive oil, again from the past years, again I don't have necessarily updated lists. Olive oil that's extra virgin with a hechsher, not Pesach necessarily. Extra virgin olive oil that has either OU, OK, star K. If it's extra virgin olive oil, even without a Pesach hechsher, is fine. All the other oils need a hechsher for Pesach, and definitely year-round also. Not definitely, but year-round oil also. People want, there's oil sprays, so then you have the kosher companies for Pesach, Glicks, and those kosher companies for Pesach. Oven cleaners, they're easy off, Shakli, those are good. Pain medication, okay, they're writing here, Advil tablets, coated, not film coated. If it doesn't say white wax in it, generally speaking, most of the Advils, Motrins, Tylenols, most of them are good. And most of the kids, Tylenol, Motrins is also good for Pesach. Paper cups, again, the best thing is to use paper cups, either styrofoam or plastic. Sometime they were last year, they were saying that the Dixie cups are good because they're coated a little bit with a thin wax. So many people say that's good for Pesach also, because even though there might be a starch in the paper, but it's covered with the wax and it's cold, so it's not a problem. Freezer paper, the Reynolds OU, paper pan lining paper, Reynolds with an OU. Parchment paper should have a hechsher for Pesach, or a kosher company. Like the Star K, the OUs, most of them are good without a separate hechsher for Pesach. Next, paper towels, okay? They say the first three sheets and the last sheet on the roll. In other words, if you're using a roll of paper towel, take off the first three sheets and don't use them during Pesach for anything hot especially, and the last sheet. If you're using the half sheets, then it says to the first four and the last two sheets, okay? Now, there was a time, and some of the books write, you shouldn't use paper towel for anything hot. A lot of times you make a latke, a meat hamburger, whatever, meat latke, whatever, potato latke, and you want to put it on a paper towel to absorb the oil or the grease or the whatever. So then some people said that it's better not to use paper towel, but halachically, really, there's no issue with it. Halachically, you can use it for hot. In fact, last year, I believe the list said last year you can even use it for hot. Again, I'm telling you halacha, I'm not telling you what people want to do, their own things. All plastic plates are good. All plastic containers are good. Prenatal vitamins, okay? And this is a medical issue. So let me say a general rule about medications. Medications, again, the medical medication list I don't have yet, they're not out, okay? I hope by the beginning of next week, they're supposed to be back getting here in the city. Halachically, it's like this. Any person that takes any medicine that has to do with heart, blood pressure, thyroid, kidney, whatever it is, you must take on Pesach, even if there's real chametz in them. Okay, now, the question of real chametz is not on pills that you swallow. The truth of the matter is, technically, even though, by the way, most medications have cornstarch in it, in the pill. Many capsules are gelatin capsules. You have veggie capsules too, but many of them are gelatin capsules. Many medications, including the Advils and if you look in the ingredients, there's something called magnesium stearate, which is actually meat from a treifa animal. So why is there a leniency of taking all these pills during the year? And then we'll discuss Pesach. The reason why you're allowed to take it during the year is because you're not eating it. You are swallowing it. And if you're swallowing it, there's not a problem. It's not even a question so much of benefit because it's not tangible chametz. It's not something which is substantial chametz. So any halachic, technically, capsules, tablets that you need to take, you could take during Pesach. I would suggest vitamins that you could do without, unless if the doctor says in your particular case, you should take the vitamins, it's very important to take the vitamins, then you could take them if they're tablets or capsules, okay? If it's liquid Liquid is a bigger problem, or chewables is a bigger problem. The problem with chlal during the year also with liquid medications and chewable medications, liquid medications have flavoring. Chewable tablets have a flavoring. Not only that, when you take liquid and you chew a tablet, you're actually eating it, which is much worse halachically than swallowing it. So what I want to say is as follows. If you want to be careful on Pesach, if it's vitamins that you don't need to take, you take a multivitamin every day, you could do very well without it for 8 days. I've spoken to a lot of gynecologists and doctors, the martial prenatal vitamins. Many doctors, I'm not saying again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not taking responsibility, but you should ask your doctor because a lot of the time, most of the time, the doctors say there's no issue with a woman not taking it for 8 days. There's no issue with it. Unless there's a whatever situation, doctor says, no, you need to take it every day. If you need to take it every day, then halachically you can take it during Pesach too. That's not a problem. The only problem is just medications people shouldn't take, if you don't need it. Now, obviously, if you have a headache or this, you want to take Tylenol, Motrin, whatever, that's Advil, that's fine. But it's time to pop vitamin pills that you could do without, vitamin C and vitamin D and zinc, and everybody now, since COVID, everybody was taking, is taking, will take, whatever. If you could do without it, then during Pesach, it's better not to take it. But again, I'm emphasizing, all Rabbonim emphasize this, all the Kosher organizations emphasize this. Any medication that you're taking for heart, thyroid, blood pressure, kidneys, any, real important medication, you must take during Pesach. If you have it in liquid form and you can get a tablet, that would be better, as long as it doesn't affect the potency of the medication. Okay, wax paper needs to have an OU for it to be kosher for Pesach. Okay, no, that we said already. Poultry we did. Okay, plastic bags we said are all good. All polish is good. Raisins, if you're buying raisins, you should do without it for 8 days. But if you're buying raisins, you really should get it with a proper hechsher for Pesach. Rice again, by the way, even the Sephardic Jews that eat rice in Pesach, they just don't buy rice in the store and eat it. There's a special rice, and they have a whole process and procedure of how to check the rice. You have to ask them, I don't know. But the Sephardic Jews, when they eat rice in Pesach, there's a whole process of how they actually check it, like 3 times or different ways of checking it to make sure there's no wheat in it or whatever. Okay, we're still, now, it's so funny, he doesn't mention here quinoa. I can tell you if only from the previous years. There's an argument in contemporary halacha if quinoa is kitnius or not. Okay? There are opinions that say it belongs to the beet family and it's not kitnius. Other people say it might be kitnius. It is kitnius. It might be kitnius. And then everybody says that even if you buy quinoa, you have to get quinoa with a hechsher and you have to check it because they produce wheat many times in the same equipment or the same nearby equipment as wheat. So if there's a particle of wheat in the quinoa, then you have a big problem of chametz. So again, if that's a staple in their diet, they can use quinoa. They have to get a hechsher. I don't have the. Let me see one thing. Okay, in the Star K, the CRC book, quinoa, they hold quinoa is not kitnius, but requires certification to be sure no other grains are mixed in. Okay, so again, then you need, if you're buying quinoa, it needs to have a hechsher for Pesach because again, it might be there's other grains in it also. Like you said, rubber gloves is not a problem. Salt, if it's the coarse kosher salt, it's good. If it's the iodized salt, you must have a hechsher for Pesach. OUP, or in the kosher markets, they sell, the kosher companies of salt. But because iodized processing of salt uses dextrose, which dextrose could be kitnius, according to many opinions. Okay, salt we said. Table salt must eat 9 iodizer with a hechsher. Sandwich bags are all good. All sanitizers are good. Scouring pad and powders are good, but not. I don't even know if they make kosher ones anymore. They used to make them years ago. Scouring pads that had soap on them, that must have a hechsher for Pesach. Otherwise, you can't use it for Pesach. It's not good for Pesach. Seltzers, if you want to buy seltzers, especially flavored seltzers, it must have a hechsher for Pesach. Because in the creating the bubbles in the process, they use citrates that could be chametz or kitnius. There are issues with it. Shampoos and conditioners, all of them are good. Shoe polish is good. It's a question halachically. Polishing your shoes during Cholamed is you're not allowed to. If you want to use it before Pesach, then all shoe polish is good. Skincare, any that doesn't have, you have to check the ingredients of these, lotions and stuff. If there's no oats or any of the 5 grains, wheat, barley, rye, oats, and spelt, they're good. All bars of soap, they're all good. Most of the liquid soaps, even the hand soaps, not the detergent, most of them are good. Soda must have a hechsher. Soy milk must have a hechsher for Pesach. Spices, again, technically whole, not ground, are good for Pesach. Again, in today's world, with so much availability of all these kosher products, if you want to use spices on Pesach, you should go to the kosher markets and buy kosher spices with a hechsher for Pesach. All sponges that don't have soap in them are good for Pesach. Plain seltzer needs a hechsher. Now, obviously, you can't use the same sponges that you use during the year for Pesach. You have to throw out the old ones and get them. Seal wool, any without soap, is good. Old sternals are good. Straws are good. Styrofoam products are good. Now, sugar, this year I don't know why they're writing increasingly common use of Pesach questionable processing aid. The bottom line is, if you want to buy plain white brown sugar, needs a hechsher for Pesach. If you want to buy, so far this is to my knowledge as of the present. If you want to buy sugar for Pesach, like C&H, plain granulated white sugar without any additives, then they write the CRC in Chicago, which is very reliable, writes that it's good and there's no problem with it. Some people have a custom that they cook the sugar and they make it into a liquid form. Again, is that necessary halachically? 100% not. If I said seltzer needs a hechsher for Pesach. If you want to cook over the sugar, fine. But halachically, if it has a good hechsher, again, halachically, there's no reason why you can't use sugar. Many people have a minute that they cook the sugar and this. I don't want to get into, no time to get into it now. Suntan lotion and medication, if you're going suntanning, they're all good. People that, let's say, need Ensure has still chametz in Ensure, but there's kitnius, which again, if somebody needs Ensure, they have to speak to a Rav, and the Rav has to decide if they have the classification of somebody who is sick, and then they would be allowed to use it. But again, they have to keep separate utensils, wash the bottles or the containers in the bathroom sink, not in the regular sink. All the sugar substitutes, like Splenda and all those types of things, all must have a hechsher for Pesach. Okay, it could be a question of kidneys, maybe even chametz. So all the sweeteners and the kosher markets, by the way, sell sugar substitutes, the diet, whatever. With a hechsher for Pesach, if it has a hechsher for Pesach, then it's fine. Tablecloths. Now let's discuss for a second tablecloths. Tablecloths is as follows. Technically, okay, all the plastic tablecloths and paper tablecloths, if there's no powder in it, that's fine. Concerning your tablecloths that you use year round, and let's say for whatever reason it is, you don't want to buy tablecloths for Pesach. According to halacha, you're allowed to wash your tablecloths in a hot cycle in the washing machine, or give it to the cleaners and tell them not to starch it. You can use the same table, halachically, you can use the same dish towels year-round for Pesach. Same thing with tablecloths. Many people have a custom for Pesach. They get separate tablecloths, separate dish towels. They put it away from year to year. Obviously, that's better. But if you have a chametz tablecloth and for whatever reason is you want to use it for Pesach, you can use it for Pesach if it's washed in hot water. And then they write, you should check the tablecloth, make sure there's no stains remaining from before. Okay, tea bag, we said before, Lipton decaf is not good for Pesach. Toothpaste, here they write AIM, Colgate, Close Up, Pepsodent, and Ultra-Right. Some toothpastes may have some chametz ingredient in it. Generally, just for people, to make people aware, many of the toothpastes that we use during the year have non-kosher ingredients in it. Some have glycerin, which could be either vegetable derivative or animal derivative. So during the year, mouthwash, not Pesach, during the year, mouthwash and toothpaste, according to most opinions, does not have to be kosher because you're not eating it, you're not swallowing it, you're rinsing your mouth with it, which again, is not forbidden to benefit from, and you're brushing your teeth, you're not swallowing it. There's a list, again, Rabbi Blumenkrantz in his book, which I didn't get yet, has a list of kosher toothpaste during the year, which are not kosher during the year, but again, halachically, any of them could be used. For Pesach, I remember many times the Scope toothpaste they wrote was not advisable to use for Pesach. But again, AIM, Colgate, Close Up, Pepsodent, those are good. All unflavored toothpicks are good. Fruits and vegetables, again, many people have accustomed, they will only buy fruits and vegetables that they could peel. Now, by the way, let me just finish this. I have a few things to say, and then I'm going to go to the comments if there's things that we didn't answer yet. All unflavored waters, the water you buy in the bottled water, all of them are good for Pesach. Again, you have to make sure that they're not citrates, minerals, zinc, things like that. But generally speaking, the bottles of water that you buy in the store, whether it's Sparklets or whatever, Arrowhead or all those, so most of them, almost all of them are really actually mamish no problem for Pesach. Now, concerning fruits and vegetables, many people have a minhag that they'll only buy fruits and vegetables that you could peel. Why is that? Because number one, people touch it in the store. We don't know what's going on. Secondly, we don't know what they're sprayed with. Maybe they're sprayed with something which might be chametz stick. Okay, so that we don't know. So many people have the custom that fruits and vegetables that you don't peel, we don't use on Pesach. Even peeling, many people will have a separate peeler for fruits and vegetables. Many people will have a separate knife for peeling. Halachically, you don't need to, but many people do. The same thing, many people have a separate, this is brought down in halacha, have a separate pot for cooking eggs. Okay? Today, when you buy eggs in a supermarket or in a kosher market, the eggs are already clean and washed. So there's no bird feed on it, there's no dirt on it, the eggs are clean. Nevertheless, there's a minhag is use a separate egg pot only for eggs, and you can keep using it for eggs. But you don't use egg pots, especially during Pesach, for anything else but eggs. People also have a custom that when they eat eggs, they will peel it not on the table, they will peel it directly over the garbage and they throw it out. They don't want eggshells on the table. Okay? Coming back to the vegetables. So many people have a minhag, they won't use fruits and vegetables that you can't peel. Many people, and this has a strong basis in halacha, that if you cook before Pesach, then many people will use fruits and vegetables that you don't peel. I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't. I'm just telling you, people have different customs. Many people that will not eat fruits and vegetables that you can't peel during Pesach, but they will cook with it before Pesach. Okay? It's similar to the concept of cooking the sugar before Pesach, which it's too late to get into the halachic purpose of cooking of boiling over the sugar and then straining it and cooking before Pesach with fruits and vegetables. So again, if somebody wants to do that, that's their choice. They don't want to do it, that's also their choice. I'm just telling you what you can halachically do. Many, even Hasidic people, will cook before Pesach, not peeling the fruits and vegetables, and that's it. So these are general products that people use for Pesach. Now I want to go into the questions that were mentioned to see if I didn't answer any of them. Okay, what was the meeting from? From what? Oh no, oils, not just the spray, which brands are okay. Again, I said oil, olive oil. All other oils must have a hechsher for Pesach. OUP, OKP, Star KP. The only oil which is good with a plain OU or OK or Star K is extra virgin olive oil. That's it. All the other oils must have a hechsher for Pesach. All mouthwash okay, I mentioned before, no. Not her Kirkland brand raw almonds, Rabbi Shusterman mentioned a few years ago. First of all, so what if I mentioned a few years ago? That doesn't mean this year it's the same thing, number one. Number two, you have to know what the story is. It doesn't, which toothpaste is okay, I mentioned. Flavored water, charcoal. I said the charcoal baguettes that are not flavored. Flavored ones you cannot use during Pesach. Do we need to stain the sugar water? I don't know what that means. I don't know what it means. If somebody wants to explain what it means, stain the sugar water. I don't know what that means. Okay. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions for the last 3 minutes?
Yes, Rabbi, with the samim that you need for the samim, cloves for the samim or something like that, can you just get it with a hechsher for Pesach or something?
Many people will use a different spice for Pesach. They won't use cloves. I'm not saying you can't. Now, the Rebbe writes a reason that you shouldn't use them to eat. But if you don't, it's only Shabbos Chol Hamoed that you're going to make Havdalah. If you can get cloves, if people don't use cloves, then you don't make very many psalmim by Havdalah. If you have like spices that you can use, fresh flowers or whatever, then you can make a bracha that way. But again, if you don't have psalmim, because let's say you don't want to use cloves and you don't use psalmim, so when you make Havdalah, you just omit the bracha of psalmim. That's all.
Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? That's it? Okay.
What about
and tea leaves?
What?
Ginger and tea leaves.
Ginger, I pictured them, sorry. The Rebbe writes, there's another thing. The Rebbe writes, we don't use ginger or cinnamon. I just mentioned cinnamon. Thank you for bringing it up, by the way. The Rebbe writes in the Haggadah that for many years, for many reasons, we don't use ginger or cinnamon on Pesach. So that's a Chabad minute the Rebbe writes, so therefore, as Chabadniks, we don't use it. What was the other thing you said?
Tea leaves, like loose tea leaves.
1 second. Tea bags. We only talk about tea bags. I'll tell you something. I don't know about tea leaves. Again, I don't have the books yet that would probably mention that. Let me just see something. 1 second. Okay, 1 minute. Here they write like this: pure black, green, or white tea leaves. Okay, if they're not flavored, instant or decaffeinated, and then they need a hechsher. But if you have plain, pure black, green, or white tea leaves. But again, if they're flavored, they're no good. If they're instant or decaffeinated, they're no good. So then it needs a hechsher for Pesach.
what about garlic?
Garlic is an issue like this. Some people have a minute. The Prima Godim, there are many posts bring down. We don't use garlic. They write it's questionable what the source is. Many people have a minute for years that they don't use garlic. Many people do use garlic on Pesach. I have no comment. In many places, they did not use garlic on Pesach. In many homes, they did use garlic for Pesach. Again, it's up to the person themselves what they want to do. They can ask their mashpia if they should be using garlic on Pesach.
Thank you.
Next week in Mitzvah Shem, we're going to be discussing the Seder and all the things that you need to know for the Seder. Once again, tonight's class, we're dedicating in memory of my mother-in-law, with Kadina Bas Rabbi Yosef Yehuda, whose yahrzeit is tomorrow night, and the show should have an aliyah.
Amen.
And don't forget, the Shabbos is Shabbos Mevorchim Nissen, and we'll see you Mitzvah Shem Monday night at the Parsha class.
Can I ask a question, please, Rabbi Shusterman?
Yes.
Okay, I wrote them down. Is nuts, let's say from Costco, just as good as buying it in Glatmart if it's sealed and there's a flyer that's going around that says Costco almonds, let's say, or it's better to buy it from store?
If there's a reliable source of saying it's good, then it's good. I don't know. I told you, I don't have my list yet completely to be able to answer the question.
Okay, and what about cupcake papers? Let's say you want to make kugels individually in cupcake papers. Is it a problem or is that considered a starch?
Cupcake paper, according to the OU, they're all good. Some people don't use it because there's a starch in it.
And when you make sugar water, do you have to take a cheesecloth and strain it, or it's not necessary?
Some do, some don't. That's all I could say.
And if someone wants to listen to the class, how could they access the recording of this class, please?
In a few days, it goes on to YouTube. You have to go to jewishbeverlyhills.com and then you subscribe, and then you can get a list of the classes on YouTube.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rabbi, can I ask you a question?
Thank you so much, Rabbi.
I mean, Shoshana Chaya, there's another way of getting it on YouTube, right?
Thank
Oh,
you,
absolutely. Yeah,
Rabbi.
you could just, if you just go to YouTube and search your name, Rabbi Yosef Shusterman, all your videos will come up and this one will be there.
But not right. Well, I don't. It takes a few days to get it there. Okay, thank you.
Rabbi Shusterman, hold on. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm not.
I'm sorry, I missed the class, the time difference, I didn't realize. One question, this has nothing to do with Pesach. You know, in the davening, there's always lines in Shema and commas. Does that mean anything to me?
Yeah, you take a break between the two words. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Bye.
you very
Shabbos.
much, Rabbi.